welcome to episode 10 of the Zag Talk podcast. As the regular season comes to a close, we're going to be talking about the last few games. We are coming out of a weekend in which we played St. Mary's on Thursday and USD on Saturday. 2 resounding victories. And we're going to have a little fun today. We're going to talk a little bit about what we would do if there was a draft of Gonzaga basketball players from the last 10 years. So without further ado, I'm Brian here with my co-hosts Dylan and Carson, and we're ready to go. Let's get into it. So over the last 4 games, it's been essentially just absolute shellackings, and we haven't really slowed down at all. And I think that WCC play has gone exactly how we all thought it would. And so it's just been outstanding the way that we've been playing. Dylan, any key takeaways from the last 4 games besides just the utter dominance of the team?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. The Gonzaga BYU game was relatively close. I think not as close as the score made it seem. I do think, and we've said this before, BYU is going to be a handful over the next couple of seasons. I think they've got some really good players on that team. Would love to see BYU, get into the tournament maybe this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think WCC is probably going to end up as a 1-bid league, but barring any craziness with WCC tournament, who plays, who doesn't play, who gets auto bid, and who doesn't. We've talked a little bit about that in the past as well. Hoping, we get some level of competition for WCC, and maybe we see a second team sneak into the tournament. It will definitely be BYU if it's not a 1-bid league. Only other thing to note, I think recently from a statistics perspective, Kispert's cooled down quite a bit. Not quite a bit. Kispert has cooled down a little bit. Shooting percentages are down. He's now shooting 6. He was 6 of 20 over the last 5 games from 3 after averaging about 50% from 3 on the season, down to about 15 points a game over the last 5 games, down from about 19 points on the season. So that being said, the team has continued to cook. Other guys have stepped up. No pun intended. Cook has stepped up recently. Absolutely put a dunk on a dude's head on Saturday, which was really exciting. Bench guys have been just tearing it up. Watson, speaking of bench guys, Watson's moved to the bench. Starting lineup now has Nembhard in it for the most part. I think that's also been really good for Watson's confidence. He's had a couple of great dunks over the last couple of games, looking really aggressive. I think this team is only getting better, which is scary. You don't see teams at this point in the season continuing to get better and better and better. And that's really just what we're seeing from Gonzaga. Carson, anything from the analytics side of things from the last couple of games?
Well, first I'm going to call you. I think BYU is almost a lock for the tournament right now. They're bracket matrix. They're 8 seed right now, almost up to the 7 seed line, which the bracket matrix, if you don't know, combines all the bracketologist projections out there. So they seem like they're in. They could. I mean, if they drop a bunch here at the end of the year and have an early exit from the WCC tournament, they might not make it. But from the analytics side, it's just like you said, defensively has just been we've kicked it up a notch over the last few games, especially, and really tapping into the full potential. We're currently up to, I believe, number 4 in Ken Palm defensively, kind of going in between the 3 to 6 range because there's a tight grouping in there. Other than that, I mean, Haslam metrics, we're number 1 in both offense and defense, which we get the benefit of things going analytically final there. And Evan Mia, I think we're also around 4th or 5th defensively there as well. So that's kind of been the big trend with the numbers. The offense has stayed steady, gotten a little bit better, and the defense has really just picked it up. So
yeah, the one thing I'm noticing in the analytics is that the player ratings for on Evan Miyakawa's site, if we exclude preseason, the preseason component in his analytics, then Drew Timme, Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi are the number 1, 2, and 3 players in the nation, even ahead of Jared Butler. Jalen Suggs comes in at number 5, Davion Mitchell comes in at number 6, and Andrew Nembhard comes in at number 7. So our starting 5 players rank in the top 7 for the entire nation at this point, which is incredible. And I think it's due in large part to the way that we have stepped up on defense. I think that for a majority of the season, our team ranking on defense was behind Baylor's for the most part. We are now in both offense and defense ranked higher than them in KenPom, which is a testament to the emphasis that I think the coaching staff has put on it in the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, you mentioned that with the KenPom numbers overall. I guess one thing we should touch on too is we're up to 38.3 something in KenPom, which at this point in the season, now his numbers go back to 1997. So we would be the top ever before the numbers went back to that. But now the 2001 and 1999 Duke teams are the only teams that have ever been higher than us at this point in the season. If the season were to end today, I believe we'd be behind one of those teams, maybe both. But I mean, it's just crazy. The level that this team has played across the whole entire season has been insane.
Yeah, I think that ties into someone one of you guys put in the notes talking about an undefeated season, being undefeated going into the tournament. Does that put more pressure on us? And I think while part of me says yes, I think an undefeated season, no matter who you are, is going to put a lot of pressure on your team or going to put additional pressure on your team. However, I think in previous seasons, with the exception of a few seasons, Gonzaga has gotten to the tournament for the most part with a loss or two. And the reasoning behind that, even that amount of wins putting pressure on us, is that maybe we don't play as, I think, I hate the argument we don't play anybody, but we haven't had the consistently good non-conference season like we had this year. Like, we have a bunch of really good games to lean back on, whereas I think previously it's been, we sweep WCC, we lose one WCC game, but we've also lost to Villanova. We've also lost to Virginia. We've also, that's not right, but there's a couple other games in there, North Carolina, stuff like that, where, we've lost games, tough non-conference games, and we just don't have that this year. And I think that should give the team some increased confidence going into the tournament and not feeling as nervous about it being an undefeated schedule, because I do think it's a very well-rounded undefeated schedule, not just hey, we've won our last 25 games because we've played 25 WCC games.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit at the December, end of December, end of the non-conference schedule, and how we had just played such a variety, which was a difference this year between previous years. And I think after we got through that gauntlet of non-conference games, I've kind of been in the boat of, I don't think that there's added pressure right now, or I'm not feeling like, man, we need to drop a game before March and just get it out of the way. I don't get that sense from this team that that's even something that they've thought about or that's weighing on them. It seems like we're only getting stronger, which if you look at some of the past years, I know 2018, 2019, we weren't undefeated, but it seemed like going into the end of that season, it just wasn't clicking quite right, and they weren't playing their best basketball. Obviously, they got beat pretty badly by St. Mary's in the WCC championship game. Obviously, that still could happen. We could lose in the WCC championship. Last year, we lost to BYU 365 days ago, 366 days ago. Haven't lost since. And I just don't see it with this year's team. We're playing at such a high level right now, and it just doesn't seem, I think, the schedule, there's no one that can really play with us. And then just the fact that we're playing, I think, some of our best basketball right now too is, it's tough to see us losing one. And once you get to the tournament, I don't really buy into the whole there's extra pressure because you're undefeated in the tournament, because there's already enough pressure. I think, if anything, the pressure this year is we're kind of expected to win a national championship. It's national championship or bust. And maybe that's what weighs on them, but I really don't think the undefeated record, especially with Baylor also being undefeated, is a huge deal.
In my opinion, the external pressure might be pretty high, but the internal pressure among the team probably is not. They're focused on the next game, and the way that the coaches game plan, it's one game at a time. But at the same time, this team has a whole bunch of different types of new added pressure that we've never really faced before. We've got 3 players that could potentially be first or second team All-Americans. One of those guys is potentially going to be a top 3 pick in this year's NBA draft. And it's, that there's questions around recruiting and like, oh, is Gonzaga going to bring in Chet Holmgren and stuff like that? So there's a whole bunch of different types of pressure that are on the team already. And the fact that we've been able to make it through without many stumbles. And aside from the Pacific game where we ended up winning by 18 points, we haven't really been challenged in WCC play. But I think that we have had those games. Like the West Virginia game was a really tough game, and we were able to kind of grind it out. It's not the kind of game that we want to play, but we were able to pull out a victory in that one. And I think wins over Kansas, West Virginia, Virginia, and Iowa prove to ourselves and prove to the rest of the country that we can hang with the Big 12 teams. We can hang with the ACC teams. We can hang with the Big 10 teams. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens. I don't think internally there's added pressure, but as we continue to go through the season, there's going to be more talk and more hype about it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. I think they're going to handle it really well, though.
It's funny you bring up the West Virginia game as one of our kind of grinded out games. And the funny thing, I've seen a lot of comments recently like, oh, hey, they only beat West Virginia by 5. Like, come on, it was only 5 points. And yeah, we didn't play well for the first half of that game, but let's not forget we were up like 12 with a minute and a half left. And they, Gonzaga did their, more in the past they've done this, but they did their kind of like, oh, let's see how close we can make this in the last minute and a half, give everyone a heart attack kind of thing. But I mean, it wasn't as close as 5 points. But yeah, I mean, small things.
That game too was basically with our top ranked freshmen not playing for most of the first half and scoring 0 points in the second half. So under those circumstances, I think we did pretty damn okay.
Yeah, but the casuals don't know that, Brian. That's giving them too much credit. They didn't watch that game.
Yeah, and the whole argument that you said that shows all those games show we can hang with the big guys from the big conferences. I don't think their fans have learned that yet. Michigan fans specifically have been a new breed. Carson, I'll let you go in on that. I think I already hated Kentucky, but my hatred for their fans has only intensified over the last 2 weeks or so. I've been on Twitter a lot more. Shout out Jay Billis for getting about an extra 250 followers. Gave Drew Timmy's Stash, which is the new Twitter handle, a shout out over the weekend, which was quite exciting. But as part of that, I've been a little bit even more in tune with Zag Twitter, or I guess I should say Zag Twitter's interactions with other Twitter groups. And it has not been fun. A lot of casuals out there, pick and choose their arguments. And a lot of it recently, which I think is the most frustrating, has been, oh, well, we beat Gonzaga last year. Or 2 years ago, we beat Gonzaga by 30. And it's like, oh, man, are you in for a rude awakening when we play pretty much any team except for Baylor come tournament time? Carson, you got anything to add for Michigan?
Yeah, the Michigan ones have really been, I got down a rabbit hole looking at some of the basketball guy tweets like Seth Davis and Goodman and stuff like that. And they it's not even a misrepresentation of like history in terms of, oh, Gonzaga always loses early, or Gonzaga, doesn't have it in March. They've never won a national championship. It's just like logic it's non-logic pretty much. I'll read through some of my favorite ones from this last weekend after Michigan beat Ohio State. Here's one guy who goes, here's my top 10. Number 1, Michigan. Number 2, Gonzaga. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Baylor. And then at the end of his list, he goes, eyeball is greater than record. So obviously he has not watched any basketball this year. His eyeballs haven't seen Baylor play basketball. So that's one. And then this new one, you kind of mentioned it. Someone goes, well, we beat Gonzaga by 20 last year, so really, should they be considered in conversation with Michigan for being in the top tier? And another, along that same line, Michigan has a better team from last year than Gonzaga has, and Gonzaga has the same team with adding Suggs. What makes people think Michigan can't beat them again?
Oh my God.
And my favorite, I'm a Michigan fan. I believe we beat Gonzaga. They were even better last year, and we clocked them pretty good. So just in case you guys were unaware, our team last year was better than this year's team. And we only added Suggs, which ignores the fact that we added Nemhard. Suggs is a 5-star top 3 pick in the draft. And by the way, Kispert is now a National Player of the Year candidate. And so is Timmy, who really didn't turn it on until the end of last season. So that's just the stuff. It seems like from Michigan fans, they are really hanging on to that, the Bahamas, the Battle for Atlantis title from last year. The third game in 3 days kind of thing. So good for them. They're not on the top tier, I don't think. The numbers, I think they're really close. I think they're a great team. But if I were to, I know Brian and I have recently gone through the car buying process, and if you have like a luxury version of a car and then the premium version right below, Gonzaga is the luxury version and Michigan's the premium. They're really similar, but they're just not quite on that level. We got a few more bells and whistles on our team, and it's just, I don't know what to they're not on our same level, and they're not on the same level as Baylor. So I'm annoyed by Michigan fans.
Now, if they just run train on the Big Ten tournament and just kind of like run through everybody, like, yeah, you enter the conversation. Welcome. But until that happens, yeah, they've had some really quality wins. The Big Ten is obviously one of the toughest conferences in the nation. But yeah, they're not on the same level. It's different. And it's funny how they can't see that.
And speaking of teams not on the same level, my biggest frustration with Kentucky fans is they like to ask us when the last time we won a national championship is. I think that is a somewhat valid argument, although if it is your only argument, it is not a solid one. The other one, and this was easily my favorite takeaway from the weekend, favorite tweet from the weekend was, you guys wouldn't be any good if Coach K had offered, if Calipari had offered Suggs. And my response was, yeah, but you still got 2 other 5 stars and 4 4-stars. You managed to kick one off the team and still lose 13 games. And you're not even above 500. Like, how could you possibly think that, like, Suggs is the difference maker for us? Suggs only is the difference maker for us of what makes us good. And that if you had him, you would somehow magically be in a much better spot. And also the farther we get away from national championships from teams like Kentucky, the better. The more the hate is going to exist, and the more it's going to intensify as they continue to cling on to championships that are in the past.
Yeah, the Blue Bloods this year, it's sad, really. I mean, I don't know. I think there are a whole bunch of different factors that you can attribute to, like, the Blue Bloods not playing how they usually should. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's funny, specifically the Kentucky fans that, even when they are 5 games under 500, they still seem to, feel a sense of superiority, which, good on you. One of the greatest basketball programs of all time, but come on, you're going to resort to, talking smack on Twitter to strangers about how your team would be better if X, it just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I don't know if we should pay any more mind to those folks because, they've got their own issues. I do want to call out before we get into the Gonzaga draft that we're gonna do here. It should be a fun little exercise. Some finalists were announced for some awards. So Suggs was announced as a finalist for the Cousy Award. I think there are a few more lists that are going to come out momentarily.
Yeah, I think they announce them once every day. So they announced the Cousy Award finalist list today that Suggs was a part of. Probably not going to win it when you have Dosunmu and Jared Butler also in that list. But he has a better chance than Colin Gillespie from Villanova. So there's that. And then I think tomorrow we'll get the West Award for shooting guard. Ayayi has an outside chance of getting into the final top 5 for that. And then the next day we'll have the Irving Award, which Kispert should be a part of. And then the following day, the Malone Award, which Timmy should be in the finalist list for too. I would assume it seems like Kispert and Timmy are probably the odds-on favorites there for those. So we might get 4 chances at the awards. I think probably get 3, and two that we can get a good chance at winning. So it'd be cool for those guys to get their seasons rewarded.
Last award comment just before we get into the draft. It is also worth noting that our most likely at this point lock, Chet Holmgren, is in the number 1 spot for National Player of the Year for high school basketball. So it'll be pretty cool if we can have a guy coming off a National Player of the Year award, and also add, a couple of guys being able to lock up some at least position awards, if not National Player of the Year.
It's time to move into our Gonzaga draft. We got this idea from some of the Fox Sports guys. I think maybe it wasn't Fox Sports. I think it was Goodman. I don't remember exactly who did it. And there was a lot of talk because Suggs was on there, but Kispert and Timmy weren't. But the way they do this, there's certain rules to it so that we're not just overloading on certain seasons. So you can only pick 3 players from each season's team. So if you select Kispert, Timmy, and Suggs from this year's team, you can't select Ayayi or Nemhard or anybody else. And the second rule is once a player has been chosen, you can't select that same player from another season. So you can't select 2019 Josh Perkins or 2018 Josh Perkins and also select the 2017 Josh Perkins, just so we're not keeping the same guys on the same team. But so I did a randomized name thing for the draft order. This is going to be a snake draft. First pick is going to be B. Mary, and then Dylan has the second one, and then I have the third. So we'll go through 5 rounds and get our starting lineups and kind of compare. Brian, who you got for pick 1?
All right, with the first pick in the Gonzaga player draft, I'm going to go with Nigel. He's part of the reason I'm picking him is because it was a strategic move. I knew that at least one of you would pick him in the first round. But he was such a difference maker in that championship run. So clear pick for me.
That makes my second pick a little bit harder. It was for sure going to be Nigel if for any reason you didn't take him. Since we're doing a podcast, I'll go through my thought process rather than just picking, but I'm debating between BC and Sabonis. I think I guess my only clarifying question, is this a one season? Like we put these 5 guys together and they go to head with the other 2 teams, like one game or one
team? So it's a team that you're putting together and it's based off of that specific season for that player, not, future career, past seasons, anything like that.
All right, I'm going to take BC then. Brandon Clark.
Okay. And I got the nice benefit here of the back-to-back with the snake draft. So I'm going to go Rui with the third pick of the first round. And then I'm going to throw in Jalen Suggs for my second pick, put him at guard.
Wow.
Dylan, you're up again.
Oh, man. I wanted him. Do I take him? Yes. I will take – I put BC at guard. I will take Sabonis, and I'll put him in at center.
Dang. That's a good pick.
That interior – I just want that big interior defense guy.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. That's big, actually. Oh, now who do I choose? This is a little tougher. I definitely want a big presence inside. Let's go Rob Sacre. Rob Sacre in at the 5. I think he's a little bit he's more athletic than Shemek. He was by the end of his Gonzaga career more seasoned than Zach Collins, and I think is ultimately more of an impact player. So I'm throwing him in at center.
All right, and then you got another one here for your.
Oh, that's right. Pick. Since we're doing snake, that's on me. Geez. Well, I'm gonna go big. We're gonna put Kelly Olynyk in there. The Olynyk Clinic. I just think he's the right combination of he's a 7-footer, but he can stretch the floor, and he's not a liability really on defense, like Kyle Wiltshire might be. So ultimately, yeah, Kelly Olynyk. All right, Dylan.
I want a distributor. I want a guy who can turn it on every once in a while. I want a guy who's, by the end of his career, did not turn the ball over at the pace he may have started on. I will take 2019 Josh Perkins.
I tell you, I've played this whole draft out in my head so many times, and I really didn't expect it to be so big man heavy early on. So now I'm trying to figure out what my strategy is. I think I got to get a big here because I don't really trust Rui as my primary. I might even slide him up to the number 3 position. But I also don't want to go super heavy in this year's team, but I kind of think I have to. So I'm going to take Timmy right now. And then I kind of feel like I have to take Kispert. I know I'm going to have like the 3 guys from this year's team. Can I do that? Yeah, because no one's taken anybody else from this year's team, right?
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like I'd be dumb not to take Kispert here, right?
I think the only other option you have is bumping Rui to forward and taking J3 and putting him in it at forward.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that's the only way you could, like, that's the only way you.
Rui going against Olynyk. And I'm comfortable. I mean, Timmy against Sabonis and Sacre. Yeah, I don't know. Rui would match up with BC too. I'm gonna go Kispert. People will flame me on Twitter for going full 2021 roster, but
that makes my next pick tough because that's where I was going next. You know what? Give me that lockdown D. I'm taking Gary Bell Jr. I would have loved to see GBJ and Perk in there at the same time too. Back to you, Brian.
All right, I've got 2 left and 2 spots. Let's see. I need a shooter. I need a shooter. And so at the 2, we're going to bring in Zach Norvell. So we had a little bit of an oversight here. Zach Norvell is actually the 4th player from the 2019 team after Rui, Brandon Clark, and Josh Perkins have all been picked. So because of that, we decided that that pick was invalid. And in Zach Norvell's place, I am going to select Jordan Matthews. He's an amazing shooter. He will fit just fine in that 2 spot. At any rate, that's my pick here. Let's get back to it. And then for my 3 spot, oh wait, actually, I need to rethink this a little bit. I was gonna pick Joel Ayayi, but I can't really do that, can I?
Not from this year. You could do it from last year.
Oh, well, I might do that just because he was really pivotal last year as well. And you know, was arguably a better shooter last year too. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. We're gonna do 2020 Joel Ayayi. I mean, the man was still a monster on the boards for some reason. I still can't figure that out. You know, being that he's a guard and everything, but yeah, I feel comfortable with that pick. All right, Dylan.
Oh man. Who's gonna go? Well, since you guys took Kispert and Ayayi, I need somebody who can guard both of them. So I need a guard forward, not a true forward. I'm just going to go for lockdown D, guys that give it their all. I'm going to take Silas Melson, and I'm going to slot him into the 3, and I'm going to hope that he can shut down both Kispert and Ayayi. And after taking 2 bigs to start, I'm going to go small with the rest of my lineup. I'll take Silas.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, so I'm eyeing 2015 Kevin Pangos a little bit here and sliding him out at the 1, and then Suggs at the 2 because he can play off ball. I think I'm probably giving up some defensively there. But geez. Yeah, I'm going to go with Kevin Pangos at point guard for me. And he'll be my distributor. He can shoot it if he needs to, but these guys are going to be getting a lot of open looks. Actually, 2015 Pangos too, not as much of a scorer as he was a distributor with that team. So I'll take him, and that's my lineup. Pangos, Suggs, Kispert, Rui, and Timmy.
And I've got 2019 Perk, Gary Bell Jr., 2018 Silas, BC, and Sabonis.
And for me, Nigel, Zach Norvell, 2020 Joel Ayayi, Kelly Olynyk, and Rob Sacre. Wow. These are tough teams.
We'll have to put it up to a vote on Twitter, see which who the Zag Twitter has winning this a matchup here.
Yep.
Also, credit to everybody for not. I mean, I know we were kind of constricted by the amount of guys you could take from a season, but everybody's got somebody on their roster from like farther back than just the last 3 seasons. We're able to fill it out pretty well between Pangos, Gary Bell Jr., and Sacre and Olynyk. Able to fill it out pretty well with some older guys as well.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. That's fun. I feel like it's always hard to try and draw parallels and compare players from different eras, even as, you know, as far back as like 4 or 5 years. So, this was a fun deal. I really like this. So I think my question is, you know, with the players that are left, what would a roster look like? But I think we should leave that up to Zag Twitter. That wraps up episode 10 of the Zag Talk podcast. Coming up this week on Thursday, we've got Santa Clara. On Saturday, we've got LMU, and that rounds out the regular season. Let's hope the Zags finish strong. Other than that, go check us out on Twitter at Zag Talk. We're going to be posting our rosters there. So take a look, give us a vote, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Go Zags!
Go Zags!
Go Zags!